A bit of background. I am 43 and my wife is 40. We've been married for 16 years and we have two kids, a 14-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. Our marriage was very rocky in the beginning, but we made it through those tough years and came out much stronger. We married young, so maturity wasn't fully there yet, but we knew we loved each other and could conquer any obstacle that came between us. I'm still not sure if this was wishful thinking. Anyway, my wife is the manager of a large advertising company and has been in the role for 3 years, while I work in engineering and have been in the field for 7 years. Both of our jobs pay well, and they gave our family a pretty good lifestyle. We were a very tight-knit family and always made sure to be there for our kids, creating great memories no matter how busy we got. I always considered myself a good dad and husband. I made mistakes, especially when it came to my wife, but I would have done anything for her. It honestly shocked me to my core when I found out that she was having a long-term affair, which brings me to the discovery. For the last 2 years before everything came to light, my wife had been acting distant. She just didn't seem to like anything I did. She kept comparing me to her boss. Yes, I know now. She would always tell me how he would handle things, and I couldn't help but wonder why I was so immature. She would ask why I didn't take the initiative to take her out on dates and make her feel special, things her boss did for his wife. I asked her what she wanted me to do to spice up our love life, and her answer was usually, "Don't ask, you need to already know and do it." So, I researched and bought books, trying to figure out how to fix things, but anything I attempted was met with either half-hearted appreciation or bitter disappointment. My wife was never like this in the years I had known her, so I thought that my inability to make her happy was something I seriously needed to fix. Little did I know, it wasn't me who needed fixing. We were very close to her boss and his wife. They also have kids, and the kids loved each other. We often brought them to our barbecues, family outings to the park, and game days at the arcade. They had been to our house numerous times, and we had been to theirs. It was no surprise that we became close. I even confided in her boss about our marital problems, and he gave me what I thought was good advice. He seemed like a swell guy. Anyway, back to the discovery. I had grown emotionally tired from my wife's demands for me to better myself, but I still didn't want to give up on the marriage. One night, I noticed that she was busy laughing and giggling while texting someone. I was next to her in bed and got curious. The moment I leaned my head to take a peek, she viciously pulled away from me and instantly became angry, asking what I was doing. I told her I wanted to see what the joke was, but she said it was none of my business and retreated to the bathroom. That was the moment I knew deep down that there was an affair going on. However, I didn't have proof, so I made the mistake of asking her directly the next day. She was furious and denied anything. I didn't have access to her phone, but I wanted the truth. Asked for her phone and she refused. Only later that night did she grudgingly give it to me. Almost every text message she had sent to certain people was deleted. I could tell because some conversations seemed inconsistent and others downright ridiculous. I gave her the phone back, and we didn't speak of it until a month later when I had a buddy of mine check the phone and recover the deleted texts. My wife had gotten another phone prior and hardly used the one she gave me. Some texts were recovered, and through bits and pieces, I finally had proof that the affair was with her boss. I knew if I confronted her immediately, she would find a way to cover it up, so I waited. I was a wreck, though. All I could think about was how this would affect the kids. The situation was horrible, and I cried in front of my buddy. I still didn't want to give up on the marriage, so 3 days later, I bought a book titled How to Help Your Spouse Heal from an Affair. It's okay if you're shaking your head. I started reading, hoping that if I gave it to my wife, she would stop this nonsense. I wanted her back and hoped we could save the marriage. I had planned to talk to her on that Saturday, but she told me that there was an emergency at work and not to wait up for her. Of course, I contacted the workplace to confirm her story, but I received no answer. Turns out, they weren't open on Saturdays. I tried her phone, but there was no answer. She came home at 2 a.m. on Sunday, immediately showered, and then came to bed. I asked her why she was so late, and she dodged the question, saying she had already told me not to wait for her. I was sick of it. I didn't give her the book I brought, as I was suffering, and she didn't care. She saw me suffering and didn't care. I contacted her boss's wife to find out if she knew anything. I was desperate for stability, and to this day, I don't regret doing that. She was as shocked as I was when she found out. She wanted to confront her husband, but I told her he would probably lie and try to cover it up, just like my wife did. We met at her house to discuss what was going on, and I shared the little proof we had. She wanted more, so we both decided to gather more evidence on each of our sides and compare it. I started snooping on my wife more, and she did the same with her husband. It was easy for her to find undeniable proof because her husband was so arrogant that he didn't even delete the texts on his phone between him and my wife. The little texts I found earlier made sense now, and we had a complete picture of how long the affair had been going on. 2 years. The boss's wife was livid, and so was I. They slept together everywhere. Her house, my house, expensive hotels, business trips. It was sickening to read all that. They even sent each other pictures, but we decided to ignore the pictures because we didn't want to scar ourselves with the images. We wanted revenge, but didn't want to stoop to their level. We both decided that if they wanted each other, they could have each other. We drew up divorce papers around the same time, and were dead set on it. Our spouses didn't know that we knew, and we played our part. By the time everything was in place, they were at it again. We knew exactly where they were going to be and how they would be served. We knew which hotel they had booked for their weekend of fun. I personally went to the hotel with the sheriff. I waited in the lobby while the sheriff took care of things. My wife was called to come down from her room. She came down in a bathrobe, looking panicked, and demanded to know what I was doing there. It was quite a distance from our home, but not too far. The sheriff asked her for confirmation of her name, and she confusedly answered in the affirmative. She was served right then and there. It was very satisfying to see the shocked look on her face, but I didn't want to rub it in. I walked away, knowing the job was done. She didn't let me go easily and held onto my arm, pulling me back, demanding to know what this meant. I told her, "You had an affair, and I'm leaving you. Simple." She started screaming at me and pulling my arm hard. The sheriff had to step in and tell her to release me. She did so and started crying, saying she could explain. I told her I had no interest in her excuses. To make a long story short, I filed for divorce. My wife and her boss are both fighting it. Neither wants to get divorced. They both claim it was only a sexual affair and that it meant nothing to them. People are telling me I'm being cruel for not giving my wife another chance, but I know that I can never be anyone's fallback plan. My kids are supporting me 100%. My wife is in therapy, but I feel my resolve slipping. Should I reconsider the divorce? People say I'm moving too quickly, and I wonder if I'll regret it. She seems genuinely willing, but honestly, I don't see how this could benefit either of us. A big part of me wants this divorce purely out of a sense of justice. It's the only form of justice I can get without lowering myself to the level of an adulterer. My mom and I finally made up after I opened up more about my wife's affair, though she's now furious with her after learning all the details. I honestly don't know how to navigate that situation. I didn't want to post here until the divorce was finalized, but I'm just so pissed off today and need to vent. As many of you know, my wife is terrified of a revenge affair because I'm still in contact with the other woman, the one she betrayed me for. My wife is incredibly insecure compared to other betrayed spouses. Other betrayed spouse is younger, a model, extremely attractive, and owns a successful business. This makes my wife paranoid that I'll give into temptation and cheat on her as a form of revenge. I can't believe the nerve of her, giving me the whole "two wrongs don't make a right" speech. Of course, she isn't wrong, and I have no intention of going down that path, but her hypocrisy infuriates me every time. When I go visit the other betrayed spouse, like yesterday, my wife gets extremely clingy or sad. I don't know how many times she's thrown herself at me just to make sure I don't cheat on her. I've rejected her advances, and it only makes things worse. It blows my mind how selfish cheaters can be, only thinking about their pain while the betrayed spouse has to deal with the aftermath and try to pick up the pieces. Another thing, our kids still see their kids. I never go to see the other betrayed spouse without bringing my kids, but my wife still thinks I'm heartless enough to take any opportunity to sleep with her. It's laughable. Meanwhile, the other man is still living in their holiday home, begging the other betrayed spouse to take him back. Not gonna lie, I feel a great sense of satisfaction seeing him suffer the consequences of his actions. He hasn't tried to threaten me, mainly because I have too much leverage on him. He has to deal with the fact that I'm still in contact with his wife. He can visit his kids whenever he wants, but he won't do it while I'm around, so he makes sure I'm not there. Honestly, I pity the guy. Currently, my wife has been extremely apologetic, showering me with affection, but I'm just not in a good place. We have a therapy session scheduled for today, and I'm thinking about unloading all the pain and anger I've been holding on to. The rage is starting to overwhelm me. Update. Checking in. Nothing major has changed, but a few developments have caught my attention. Going through my past posts and messages, I've come to realize how helpful this community has been in offering support to people like me. I've been reading a lot about infidelity to better understand my situation. In a recent therapy session with my wife, she asked me to give her a bit more time to try and win me back. She gave me a ton of reasons why it would be beneficial for me to at least consider participating in the recovery of our marriage, though not necessarily reconciliation. I kept bringing up the fact that she's only trying now because of the fallout from her affair. She wouldn't be trying if she were still seeing the other man. She emotionally abused me for months, and I'm not the type of person to let someone walk all over me, even if it's the woman I loved. She admitted to all her wrongs and apologized again. She's promised to make it up to me and wants our marriage to become stronger than ever. She honestly believes it's still possible. I asked her if she was willing to handle my rage, because I have a lot to give. She said yes, and that she wanted me to unload on her whenever I felt like it to help me process the pain. When I asked her why she had the affair, I usually get a million excuses, but this time, she was honest. She told me there was no excuse for what she did. She said she would spend every day for the rest of her life showing me through her actions that she was truly remorseful and would never hurt me that way again. She admitted that the affair was a fantasy, a temporary boost to her ego. She said she hardly thought about the consequences of her actions, though from time to time, she regretted it. She believes she'll carry the guilt with her for the rest of her life. She also told me she could never compare to the other betrayed spouse, and that the reason she was so sure I would cheat back was because other betrayed spouse is not only beautiful but also a woman with integrity, someone who hasn't once been cruel or threatened her. This revelation hit me hard. My wife's insecurities were driving her actions, and perhaps my anger over her betrayal only fueled that. Here's where it gets interesting. The therapist asked me what it would take for me to consider her proposal. Honestly, nothing came to mind. I told her quite bluntly that I need a time machine because what I have now is a sham of a marriage, and I didn't sign up for this. The therapist suggested that every marriage faces problems, whether from infidelity or other sources, and it's how those problems are handled that demonstrates the strength of the marriage. I couldn't believe we were having this conversation, and I told the therapist to focus on my wife. My inability to listen to logical reasoning might be an issue in communication, and I didn't disagree. On the drive home, my wife asked if I felt emasculated because of her affair, and I was honestly surprised. I admitted that I did. She then asked if I'd feel better if I slept with another woman. I told her, again, that I had no interest in a revenge affair, but she explained that she was talking about a trial separation where I could get my mojo back and she'd remain faithful, waiting until I was ready to come back to the marriage. I couldn't believe it. This sounded crazy to me. I asked how that would benefit the marriage. Her response was that since we were getting divorced anyway, if this didn't help, at least I could see what the outside world had to offer. I rejected her proposal immediately. It felt out of character for her to even suggest it. In these past few weeks, she's been surprisingly calm and patient. She seems like a different person from the crazy, insecure one I knew. I can't trust her, though, no matter how generous she's been in the divorce. So far, the process has been relatively civil, and I'm thankful for that. The divorce will be finalized in mid-February, and we've split everything down the middle. She's been generous, but I still don't know whether it's a tactic or if she truly feels guilty and wants to make things right. It's hard to tell. Update: officially divorced and moving forward. It's been a long time coming, and I did mention before that I would come back and update one last time. Well, here it is. It's officially over. My ex and I have separated for good, and it happened nearly 3 weeks ago now. For the first few days after, I grieved deeply, almost like I had lost a loved one. It hit me hard, the realization that my marriage had failed so spectacularly. I've never cried that hard since discovering the affair. I also felt a lot of anger. It was definitely one of my lowest points. But things have been organized now. My ex moved out, and I'm working on buying her out of the house for the kids' sake. She's living in an apartment now, a major downgrade for her, and it's clearly getting to her. She's still seeing a therapist, and she continues to study and read about infidelity. I'm not entirely sure why, but we've had some long talks about everything. Since the divorce, we've kept our physical contact to a minimum. I know I shouldn't entertain her too much, but she's still the mother of my children, and I want us to be good co-parents. I've remained logical about everything, largely thanks to the support from this community and others. It's the same story. She wants to reconcile, but I've realized it's too risky for me to put myself in that situation again. Unfortunately, I'm just not ready to give her that chance. This past weekend, I spent time with someone else who had gone through a similar experience of betrayal. We had a meal together, with no intention other than enjoying each other's company. As the night went on, things got a bit more personal than expected. To be honest, I didn't expect it to go that far, but it did, and we ended up having a very meaningful connection. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional and affirming, something I hadn't experienced in a long time. I won't go into too much detail, but it helped me a lot with some lingering self-esteem issues. I felt desired and alive again, and it made me realize what I had been missing out on. I'm proud of how I've handled all this. I wasn't perfect, but I did the best I could. While I did lose a significant amount financially, it was still worth it because I was willing to listen to others and absorb the advice I received from this community. Takeaways. Respect yourself. Never accept disrespect from anyone, not even the people closest to you. Everyone deserves a healthy, fulfilling relationship. Never settle for less. Every committed relationship should have a healthy and fulfilling emotional and physical connection. If your partner isn't meeting your needs, it's okay to speak up. Communicate openly. Communication is key to any relationship. If you're betrayed, healing is a personal journey, and only you can take the steps to recover. Latest update. Things are moving forward. I've been getting a lot of emails from people checking in on me, and I appreciate it. I've purposely stayed away from anything related to infidelity because I still get triggered from time to time. But since so many people have been concerned, I'm here to give you an update. I'm doing okay. No disappearances or drama. I'm just focused on moving forward. I'm still with the person I started seeing after my divorce, and she's been an incredible support. We both had similar experiences and helped each other through the rough aftermath of betrayal. We've been working through everything together, and we're still figuring out how to make our relationship work, especially with kids involved. Speaking of the kids, we've been focusing a lot on their well-being. My daughter, who's 15, still needs some time adjusting to everything, but she's open to the idea of me being happy. She's had a lot of conversations with me about her feelings, and I always try to be there for her. My son, who's 10, really likes my new partner, and he's adjusted quite well. We're all in therapy, me, my ex, the kids, and even the other parties involved. We're trying to be as open and supportive as possible for everyone. As for my ex, things are still a bit complicated. She's trying to repair her relationship with our daughter, and I'm glad to see progress there. I don't know if we'll ever get back together, but I've made peace with it. We're on good terms, and I hope she continues to focus on her own growth. Final thoughts. We're all moving forward, slowly but surely. It's not a fairy tale ending, but I'm happy with the progress I've made. My relationship with my new partner is growing stronger every day, and my kids are adjusting to the changes in their lives. I'm grateful for the support I've received and for the lessons learned. If you're going through something similar, just remember, take care of yourself, communicate openly, and never settle for less than you deserve. Thanks to everyone who's supported me throughout this journey. I'm in a much better place now, and I'm looking forward to the future. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit notification bell to stay updated.